everyone. This is Carol from Practical Mystic. Thanks for joining me. I'm really excited about being able to do this video on the universal year 2020. Each year our universe changes into a new number which they call the universal year number. And of course for 2020, as you can see, we can look at it different ways, but we add up 2 and 2, we get 4, or we can use it as a 22, and in numerology everything is brought down to a base digit. So you see /4 because again the 2 and the 2 are added up. Then I will discuss how the corresponding tarot cards in these numbers also represent the energies of this universal year. So namely, card number 4 is the Emperor. The Fool card is dual in nature. It has the 0 number on the card, but it also represents the 22nd card in the tarot deck of the major arcanas. So it is known as a 22 card. You also see Judgment Eon, and then of course Judgment card is 20, and I have a double 20. I will go in depth into explaining that also here today. But I wanted to bring your attention to this aspect that occurred January 12, 2020. That's when we had the Saturn conjunct Pluto in Capricorn. And I put a number to it. As you can see, I was fascinated not only by what this aspect did to the world, because I think the energy is still affecting us and it will affect us for a long time. Also fascinating, if you look at January 12, 2020, and it was, I believe, on January 21st, 2020, that the World Health Organization came out and began expressing what they knew about COVID-19, where you still have the same dynamic of those numbers. And certainly what I want to kind of explain is when you add up January 12, 2020, 1 plus 1 plus 2 plus 2 plus 2, you get a number 8. Now, 8 corresponds to the planet Saturn, which is certainly instrumental in the conjunction of Pluto in Capricorn, and Pluto has been in Capricorn for quite some time. It is still in Capricorn, and both of these planets currently, today, June 21st, where we have a full moon in Cancer, and we also have a solar eclipse. Saturn is going retrograde. It is now in Aquarius, but it's going retrograde and will be back into Capricorn. And of course, Pluto is going retrograde. And that is also why I feel this energy is going to continue. And the tarot card number 8 is known as strength in the tarot. Now, in the Egyptian thought deck, card number 8 is called adjustments and justice. And what I have here in parentheses, I try to encapsulate what this energy reflects and continues to reflect, that it's the principle of negotiation, which is all about Saturn and Pluto, and also truth. We want to go back to the drawing board, talk about it, make decisions about it, but first of all, we need to uncover what Pluto does very well, the truth, which justice is all about, making a judgment call by having all the facts, all the information, and going forward. So that is why I wanted to bring that to your attention. And in this video, we will be talking about the energy of the number 8. We will be talking about the planet Pluto, and we will be talking about Saturn. And hopefully those who do not know much about astrology will see the connection or the energy or an identification of what is happening currently in our world. All right, so I would like to begin by explaining when I say universal year, or when a numerologist talks about each year the universe goes under a new number, a new vibration, what's really important to keep in mind is that the century stays the same. So we will, and it's called a framework in numerology. So let me try to explain that. Even though every year the universe is under a different number, i.e. this year we're under 4. If you look at 2 plus 2 is 4. That's the energy that we will vibrate under from January 1st, 2020 till December 31st, 2020. We will be under that 4 vibration, as well as the 20, because it is a century. Now, if you look back, we were in the 20th century in the years of the 1900s for 100 years. And for 100 years, under that 19, and most of us were probably born in the 1900s that are listening to this video, for 100 years, that framework was the number 19. Every year, each number changed. So last year, of course, we were 2019. This year, we're 2020. This stays the same. Next year is 2021. And under the energy of the 19, as you can see, it basically vibrated continuously with that one energy, because 1 and 9 add them up is 10, 10 and 0 is 1. So we went back and forth between 19, and let me get my other cards here that I know I took out ready for this video. 19, of course, is the Sun card. And what is the Sun card? The Sun card is all about integrating the unconscious with the conscious and being freed. The 10, of course, is the Wheel of Fortune. And then the 1 is the Magician. Okay? So for 100 years, when we were into the 1900s in the 20th century, this was the energy, 19, 10, 1. Okay? For 20 years now, it is so hard to believe, but for 20 years now, we have been vibrating in the 21st century with the framework now of number 20, and that's what I want to discuss. That we are still under the 20 energy and will continue to be for another 80 years, because we know that a century lasts 100 years. And that's the important part, because this year is a double whammy of the 20 energy. And that's what I would like to discuss with you today. And I will put this card here so we can kind of focus on it. But the other thing that may be going through your mind right now is, all right, Carol, you talk about the number 20. You say that this energy is tenfold because it is repeated. And yes, that is true. And I don't want you to lose sight of the energy of the 0. Many people believe that the 0 is just a placeholder in numbers, but it is not. On an esoteric level, it is not. In fact, in ancient writings, numbers were first symbols, and the 0 or the O was a circle. It was a sacred circle. It was called either the cosmic egg, it was called our source, it was called the universe, it was called God, it was called whatever you wanted to call it, the Alpha, the Omega, the Absolute, and it is also the seed in the ancient esoteric knowledge that tells us everything else stems within it. So potentiality is in this void dash cosmic egg energy. And it looks like it is absent of quality, but potentiality is there, and it is infinite, it is eternal, it is cosmic energy, and right now it is behind our 2 energy. Before I talk a little bit more about the 2 energy, I just want everyone to understand that the 2 energy is completely opposite of the 1 energy, of the 19 energy. The 2 energy is more about we than it is about me. And in numerology, when you find a 0 anywhere in a date of birth in a time period, it is called an amplifier. What that means is it empowers the number before it. Again, alluding to the power that the year 2020 has for, I'm going to say, another 6 months. We're in the middle of June. We have another 6 months of this energy, and that's what we're going to talk about. All right. Let's just look at the number 2, because in all honesty, we can look at that number and break it up as to 2020, and you might say it is the High Priestess. So I want to cover the numbers in their single state, and of course in their denominators and their multiplications of. So the double digit of 20, and of course the single digit of 2 plus 2. All right? And of course there is no number 40 in the tarot, so I can relate the 20 to the Judgment card, which it certainly is, because again, going back to the framework that I referenced earlier, this stays the same for 100 years. That's the umbrella that the universe is under. This changes every year. So just looking at the number 2 in numerology, it is a feminine, it is receptive nature, it is astrologically linked to the moon, it is the High Priestess, and it introduces to us the law of duality. It is a blending, a balancing, equilibrium. Both of the columns are equal in height. It's a give and take, and it indicates cooperation as a number. Now we know that the High Priestess represents a woman sitting in the middle pillar, and between the middle, becoming the middle pillar, if you look at it as the tree of life, and she holds a lot of great information, and she guards that information, okay? Now, going back to understand that energy of the 2 for this year, because we're moving ahead now. Remember, we've been in this 20 vibration for 20 years. And what have we have to learn right now? Well, the esoteric knowledge says that in order for us to evolve, that our 2 singularity, that means me without you, because 2 is the combination of something else. That combination has to be, have self-esteem, be self-centered in its knowing who they are, that they understand their ability to go through life and have a way of dealing with the highs and the lows. So the 2 becomes let's say, whole or united when it doesn't feel like it needs other to shore it up. And that's a tall order. And as I view that in a kind of a state of reality, I come to this question of, well, let me backtrack a little bit. The lesson learned in the 19th century, or I should say, yes, in the 1900s, because the 1900s were in the 20th century. The lesson for 100 years under the vibration of the 19, and I think, which is the Magician, the Wheel of Fortune, and then the, here's how I want to explain that. I like showing, okay. The 19, here we are, the 1 and the 9. For 100 years, the Magician walked the path until he became the Hermit, the 1 and the 9. And when he did, he achieved the essence of card number 19, where he was totally integrated, the conscious and the unconscious, put his past behind, and didn't rely on anyone, didn't need the horse's reins. He was butt naked, didn't worry about what other people thought, and he was free as a bird. And follow me, because the 1900s is gone now, and now, okay, and now we are in the 20th the 2000s or the 200s or the 2000s in the 21st century. And now for the next 80 years, we are learning the lessons of judgment. But what happens if we didn't learn the lessons of the Magician walking the transformational path to the Hermit? That is the question. And what I'd like to, and how I work with that on a personal level, is I ask, and I answer the blank, do I feel content, complete, and satisfied when I don't have, and you fill in the blank, and see where that leads to. And another way that I answer that or look for indications of where I am not integrated and whole, and believe me that I myself am not completely integrated and whole, is, do I feel content, complete, and satisfied when I don't do what? And that one really works, because I think the lesson of this energy in the pandemic has brought us to a place where I feel complete, whole, and okay when I can do my distractions. For many of us, we could not do our distractions. And what are the distractions? Was it shopping? Was it going to nightclubs, restaurants, whatever you want to fill in the blank? That was taken away. And it gave us an opportunity to see that we had many distractions to keep us from going within. And I thought that was an important aspect to bring up. All right, so what are some of the negative aspects, going back to the number 2, because this way you're going to understand the energies of 100 years. Again, we've been in it for 80. The negative aspects are vacillation, indifference, deception, cowardly, self-centered, codependent, depression. Those are some of the aspects of the negative side of the 2. Okay, so let's move on to the number 20 in numerology, because it is it is called in numerology, number 20 is called regeneration, which is representing knowledge coming from past experience that I can use in order to better myself and my future. And this can also be seen as the, let me get it out here, because in numerology, we find out where numbers come from, and it takes 2 10s to make a 20. And this is looked at in numerology. The number 20, you have to recall that the 10 was before it, so it was part of the journey. Well, that gives us a lot of symbolism here, because part of the journey of what the Wheel of Fortune represents is that we continue to descend and ascend the wheel of life, right? We have evolution, we have involution, and basically the 0, we have 3 of them here, okay? And we're reminded about its power, as well as this 10 is connected to the T-O-R-A on the scroll of the High Priestess, and many, many, many other things. But that is a connection to the numerology of that number 20. Now, Harriet, what is her name? Augusta Curtis. She had a wonderful book called The Key to Destiny. And she refers to the number 20 as the Dispenser of Wisdom. And she basically says that under the 20, under the law of the 20, we understand the essence of duality. We've come across that because we went through the 2. And that man, when he became incarnated and entered into the world, was given the responsibility to not only take care of himself, but also to take care of the earth and what is around him. And that through, let's just say, man, know thyself, which we were supposed to do in the 1900s that we passed, then again, we are better able to navigate, to understand, and to make better choices. All right? Also, the 0 in the 20 having to do with having no beginning and no end. The circle represents that space and time is limitless and life is cyclical. And I am a believer that if you don't get it right, you can start over. And I'm not talking about incarnation, but I'm just talking about an evolving individual where, you know, one episode does not describe who you are, and that we can start over again every day. But we have to kind of be aware that we may have been doing something wrong, may have been leading a life that led to despair, uncertainty, or dead ends. And then again, we have that choice. Do we want to start over again? And then now going back to the tarot card, the 20th card, there's a word on it. It's called judgment. Okay, now the Webster's Dictionary it defines judgment, but what I thought was kind of more importantly, and I found fascinating as I did some digging, is how the Aleister Crowley Egyptian deck calls the 20th card Eon. Okay, so what I did is I said, okay, I remember that. Now here's his book, and you can see it's well loved. I'm going to read to you what is under the description of, it starts here on page 15, I believe. I thought I had it already. And I apologize. Yep, okay. Now, he has written this interpretation of card 20 Eon. The time for the birth of an eon seems to be indicated by great concentration of political power, with the accompanying improvements in the means of travel and communication, with general advances in philosophy and science, with a general need of consolidation in religious thought. It is very instructive to compare the events of the 500 years preceding and following the crisis of approximately 200 years ago with those of similar periods entered into the 1904s of that old era. He goes on to say that it's an uncomfortable time for the next generation, the 500 years of dark ages. And he leaves the analogy that in this case, it's fortunate that we have brighter torches and more torch bearers. And of course, the book was written back in 1944. So he's looking at the time of this eon, which is the current time period, and what it holds. And he talks about really a change in science, a change in politics, a change in religious thought, which of course is occurring. But what struck me to be very informative was when he says, it is very instructive to compare the events of the 500 years preceding and following the crisis of approximately 200 years ago. Okay, now, I think it's important that we look at what happened approximately 200 years ago because it coincides with the cycles of change that are now occurring astrologically. 200 years ago was when we entered the Piscean age. The symbol for the Piscean age or the Pisces is two fish connected, but they are swimming in opposite directions. And the key phrase for Pisces is, I believe. The ruling planet for Pisces is Neptune. Neptune reigns over, now again, we're going back some time, narcotics, oil, liquids, chemicals, brewing, anesthetics, psychic phenomena. Now, I choose these because we have an opioid addiction. We have an oil crisis. And right now, Neptune is in the sign of Pisces. It's very comfortable there. And it is bringing all this up. Now, to go a little bit further, the planet Neptune is called in astrology a transcendental planet, or you can look at it and say it is a collective planet. And what that means is that it affects the whole. It affects everybody because of how slow it moves and its time frame. That's one part of explaining it. Pisces and Neptune are also known to be intuitive, spiritual, illusionary, and they do have escapic urges. Okay, now going back to, we entered the Piscean age approximately 200 years ago. I think a lot of people know that if we are not already, we are certainly in an overlap of where we now have the age of Aquarius upon us, okay? So there are two different energies. I want to maybe take a minute here and explain what those energies are. Aquarius is number one, a whole different sign. Okay, let's look at the glove of Aquarius, and I wish I had a picture here, but Aquarius is known as the water bearer, and that makes people believe that it is a water sign. It is, and it's an air sign, but he is there and he's pouring what looks to be water, but could also be electrical currents out of an urn. All right, and the key phrase for the sign of Aquarius is I know, where Pisces is I believe, Aquarius is I know. And if you look at the Piscean age, and of course the Christian symbols for the fish, where Jesus used the fish as a symbol, there's a lot of, I believe, by Catholicism and the Roman Catholic Church and religion, there's a lot of that essence, that foundation in the Piscean age. When we shift to or are more complete in the Aquarius age, and that modality is totally reverse, and it's I know, there's a big difference with believing and knowing. Certainly, please, no one take away the importance of the Piscean age or think that I am putting more importance of the Aquarius age. I am not. I am saying the ages are changing and they are different in their energy and their dynamics. And when two energies come together that are opposites, then there's going to be a clash of what I believe and what I know and what I want to create or what I want to keep, all of that energy there. So let's continue a little bit more, because to get a feel of Aquarius, the ruling planet for Aquarius is Uranus, okay? Now Uranus reigns over things also, inventions, reform, telepathy, aviation, revolutionary ideas, certainly metaphysics. And the fascinating part that I wanted to connect here when we talk about Uranus or Uranus, in the tarot it corresponds to the Fool. And look at that energy of the Fool if we look at 2020. Or the 22-4, the 0, the Fool comes in strong, heavily. All right, so that is one connection. The other thing I want to do is talk a little bit about the elements that I alluded to before. If we look at the element water, we know that water is kind of feeling, it is emotional, it is sensitive, and water attaches and water conforms. You put red dye in water, that water completely turns red. You put ice in, if you freeze it, it changes forms. If you put heat, so water takes in and takes on the form, where air, on a psychological level, is it's the thinking, it's the reasoning, it's inventive, it's scientific, and it's very, very detached. It doesn't cling to anything. It dissipates. It comes and it goes, and it starts up again, and it dies down. So we don't consider it an attaching element. So the other thing that probably may help people see the differences in the two ages is something in astrology called the qualities. And the qualities are different. The qualities is the way a sign operates in the world. The quality for Pisces is mutable, and for Aquarius it is fixed. And the mutable qualities do a little bit more of the thinking, where the fixed are the builders of the zodiac. They've already thought about it. Now let's put, let's put our feet on the ground and let's do it. Where there's this processing with the water, feeling it out, conforming, looking for safety, and the air sign says, we're here right now, let's do it. No more procrastination. And sometimes it does it a little quickly and doesn't turn out, but that's the difference in the way that they operate on live. So we also have that dynamic going on in this year 2020. And the belief is that this transformation process of the ages is consciously or unconsciously bringing up the best of humanity and the worst of humanity. If the shadow was not repaired and worked on in small doses somewhere along the line at this juncture in the universe, it will rear its head, and you will be confronted on an instant level. And that's why it is a chaotic period of time, as well as an exciting time, because if I can give you the analogy of how bad a tooth hurts, and we know we've got to go to the dentist and get this taken care of, and we're not really looking forward to it, but once we do, once we deal with it, there is such relief, and everything else starts. You can eat again, sleep again, whatever. And that's maybe a terrible analogy, but none of us change unless sometimes it's very, very uncomfortable, or we're made aware of it when somebody complains or we see somebody acting out. We then need to take action. But when everything is fine, we just seem to go about everyday living. And right now, everything is not fine. All right, I want to continue now by, if you haven't already kind of gotten an idea that really the heavens, the universe, kind of speak in a symbolic language. We're archetypes in the tarot. So what I want to do is kind of explain some of the symbolic language so you can maybe read deeper into what this energy 2020 has in store for us, is showing us, and even beyond. So again, let's keep in mind that this is a repeated vibration for 1 year, and there's great importance of it. And also, let's look at what happened globally back in February, when we were faced with something that was really unimaginable. Now, individually and collectively, let's face it, we've gone through a gamut of physical, emotional, economical, social, spiritual crisis. And most recent, we have the human civil rights and a cry for justice. I mean, the words are all over here. Justice, truth. Government can be looked at with the emperor. The fool, we'll discuss that a little bit later, but having nothing to do with foolishness, believe me. So we become aware that we weren't aware, and that we were ignorant and negligent, and we lacked energy for humanity, for our fellow brothers and sisters. We saw that we haven't really made much progress. That's the truth. And now there is mounting uncertainties. I don't take away from that. And we don't know which direction the world is going to take as things kind of go through the process, let's just say. But at some point, each of us, because we are affected on an individual and collective level, is going to turn within and say, okay, I want to empower myself so that I no longer give away my power to outside forces, and I feel safer and let go of fear. And that is, I think, very important for the majority of us. If we listen to the media, if we watch what is happening, it certainly will ignite possibly more fear. So there has to be a discernment, a personal agreement within yourself that you will only allow out there to tell you what may have a hidden agenda of what they want you to believe, they need you to believe, they hope that you believe in order to keep you in a manner that is to their best interests. And that's all I'm going to say about that. It is an individual decision where you decide how you want to interpret what is happening during this call of waking up to what is happening. All right. So yes, let's kind of recap. We've come face to face with the stark reality that sometimes we have very little control. Now let's work in this Emperor. All right. Because, as I said earlier, we are in the framework of the 20, have been for 20 years, will continue for another 80 years of transformation, and some of us will wake up before 80 years. We might not have that long to live, but we can look at the Emperor as a very positive thing in the tarot and in the number, and we can look at it as the law of society, okay? Because that's certainly part of the aura that we get from the Emperor card. So I want to look at the importance, first of all, of integration, all right? Card 20 depicts the necessity of integrating our inner world and our outer world, and I kind of alluded to that just earlier, how much you want to take in and what you want to do to shore up what you want for your life and your family, okay? Also, we have to know that we are responsible, or we are respond-able to what is happening. And I want to bring you now to this word judgment, because and kind of ask some questions, okay? Who is the judge right now? What does that word mean? Okay? And who, how do I want to say this? All right. On a personal level, how are you judging this? Okay? We have to look at what you're judging happening in the pandemic, in the racial unrest and inequality, with the power, all of that, with the power of our police, with our power of our government, with our power of our all of what all of us are being brought right at our doorstep. How do you judge that? Okay, that should be the question for you. Is it good judgment? Okay, now that can be tricky when I ask that question, because, and we can ask it, is it good judgment? Does it connect us or does it separate us? And the other way of looking at is it good judgment is, where is my belief system of judgment based on? From a moral? Is it from a religious? Is it from a societal? Is it from a tribal? Is it generational? Is it political? Where is your judgment originating from? Where is that foundation? And then, very importantly, is it time for me to transform or change my manner of judgment Now that I am given more information, more truth, upon saying that, I have experienced where it's quite important to look at where we also get our information to make that judgment, because there is an ulterior motive of whatever company is putting out that information, sponsored by, or the deception in advertising, that we really have to be, again, use discernment, our gut, our higher self, to say, is this right for me? Is this idea, this purchase, this course of action, this job, this place, is it accurate? Judgment is important. Making the right judgment is important. So those are kind of the questions that I present as a way of really looking at, getting the knots out of this line of information that we have, where we get stuck with fallacies and misgivings and false beliefs. And a lot of us are saying, wow, I trusted the medical industry. I thought they'd be there for me. I thought we had ABC in our hospitals. I thought this organization was equipped, and that's all being blown out of the water. Again, and that is the job of Pluto. That's what Pluto does. That's what Saturn does. These planets break down structure. And again, we'll talk a little bit about Saturn and its energy, but Pluto says, this is no longer serving anyone's purpose. I'm going to ask you to give it up. If you don't, I will make sure that brick by brick, it will fall down upon you. We'll clear it away and we can start over, okay? Pluto does that. It's a transformer. So it's really important to as an individual, to come from a place of truth, authenticity, integrity, and a willingness to commit to your values, because your values are changing as well during this 4 energy. Okay? Now we are quickly finding out that much of our belief system on our government and our laws may also have to change, or we may work for a cause for them to change. That certainly has to do with the 4 energy. And before I want to finish up here with the Judgment card 20, and kind of give everybody, I love giving everybody some symbology that is a positive way to look at what the card represents. All right. Number 1, all of us are looking for stability, and I have to say that the card number 20 in and of itself shows that there isn't going to be much stability on the earth plane per se. And how did I reach that or read into that? Well, the esoteric indications of this card, number 1, is that this is on the 4th dimension, and in reality, you look at these, let's say, coffins floating on water, so there is no stability. I mean, you get up and like a canoe, you start moving and you're going to tip over. So as far as stability, it's going to be on and off when it comes to the world around us, okay? So again, the importance of us finding our own stability inwardly. And then the other thing is, I really believe that this month, the end of June, and of course today with this solar eclipse, there is going to be additional changes in our world, especially since the United States is a Cancer nation, and there's an eclipse here. We're also halfway through the 2020 energy of the year, and the energy of the 4 will take more hold, and I will explain that a little bit later. But we are to the month of June is at a crossroad, and I thought symbolically it would be wonderful to look at the cross on the banner that Archangel Raphael has on his trumpet, and these are energy lines. And I wanted to read from this book, Commitment to Love, Transforming Human Nature into Divine Nature, and it's by Maureen Moss. And she talks about the angelic realm. And for Archangel Gabriel, and of course the tarot uses the male gender, Maureen uses the female gender for Archangel Gabriel. And I wanted to read what she has here to say, because it's very important, I believe, that we are at a crossroad. And what is the message that Gabrielle is saying? Okay, and I'm reading here from you. Archangel, Gabrielle, where are you? Here we go. Often seen with her trumpet, she is the heralding messenger of the spirit of truth and inspiration. She is also known as the Archangel of resurrection and heavenly mercy. She will bring you hope and help you maintain a clear field of energy to follow through on any inspiration. She assists in keeping all creative pathways open so you can receive more illumination from higher realms. Archangel Gabriel will blow her horn loudly as humanity moves into and through the transition stages, signaling to all dimensions that a new form of humanity has been formed, a divine form. When she appears, you may see her in a silvery white cloud and notice a trail of silvery lights. Archangel Gabriel is result-oriented. Call upon her when you need a push in the right directions towards your life's purpose. She will open doors for you when asked, and once done, will warn you not to procrastinate. Now, in the book, Maureen Moss also has an invocation. Now, this is the invocation for Archangel Gabriel, and you can pause your video right now if you would like to write this down and maybe read it or say it. But this is the invocation for Archangel Gabriel, and she is here telling us there is a new energy, a new dimension that we are going in, which really resonates with the age of Aquarius in many ways, and evoking to get out of our slumber, our dream state, and take hold of reality and make the changes that we feel right now need to be made. Okay, let's go on to talking about now what the universal year having to do with the 1 year influence of number 4. As I said earlier, we can look at it as 4 or 22, which is the card number for the Fool card, because it's the 22nd card, and the 0, all right? So under the Emperor, it represents the universal principle of power and leadership. So for 1 year and we've already been it now for, let's say, 6 months, from January 1st, and it ends December 31st, that the 4 energy is talking about power, leadership, of course, family, and profession. If we look at the number 4 in numerology, it is Pythagoras said it was a sacred number because it was connected to the 4 departments of life. Not only the 4 departments of life, but it was a sacred number. And I know I put my little, I wanted to show you that. Okay, right here. Okay. It's a sacred number because the number 4 is really a 10, all right? And this is why it's a very mysterious number. If you add up 1 plus 2, you get 3. If you add up 3 and 3, you get 6. And if you add up 6 and 4, you get 10. Now, that makes it a powerful number because it empowers the energy and the spirit, and here we go back to the Wheel of Fortune of 10. So the 4 has the power of the 10, which is what? Saturn. This card relates to Saturn, karma, the Wheel of Life, the Wheel of Faith, living, evolution, involution. All right, so that is part of the energy of the number 4, as well as it connects us to the Fool card, because the Fool has the Jewish, if we talk about the Jewish Kabbalah, and we know about the Hebrew letters for the sacred name of Jehovah, Yahweh, that is called the Tetragrammaton. And it is said, of course, that is the 4, the 4, Yah, He, Vah, He, that's the Tetragrammaton, and that is under that domain of the 4. Having it here embroidered on the shirt of the Fool card, where, of course, the white indicates his purity. Of course, this is a spiritual sun. It's not a regular sun. Connects him again with the Emperor. So we can look at the 4 number as saying, it's a mundane number, which it very well is. When you look at it with its 1, 2, 3, 4, 10, it can be looked at a very mundane, as well as the Emperor being the ruler of society. But it also connects us to that spiritual realm. The 4 also is a time when we have to, everything is a square. Of course, we know the Masons talk about the cube, but this is a time when we have to square up, using an analogy of a word. We have to square up with ourselves and with others. We have to be real. We have to tell the truth, okay? And it centers around efficiency. It centers around details. It centers around doing it correctly. It means that we take apart what Pluto says, this structure no longer serves your best interest. Whether that structure is a form of religious belief or a societal belief or a governmental policy, those archaic ways of believing that they have to continue, the 4 is reminding us to let them go and rebuild again with a truer form, with the form that now takes the place of where we as a society have evolved to or need in our world. The 4 also says we have to be careful of what we create, and I go back to the empowering of the 0, where all things stem from it. We can become quite our own alchemists in creating our reality now when we have the right tools. And of course, the right tools are fourfold. Those are the four elements. Those are the four divisions of life. And when we use them properly, the universe blesses us, and then it co-creates with us. So there's an awareness of this energy of co-creating right now. Of course, there is a flip side. There is always a negative aspect of the four, which I think that in the last 6 months we may have seen it. Criticism, selfishness, limitations, maybe not thinking out of the box, depression, despondency, financial limitations, working for lost cause, futility, doing something over and over again and hoping for a different result. That's the four being boxed in and can't see his way out. So what are we to learn from this number 4, this universal year? What is our vision? Well, number 1, we need to be our own leaders with our own visions. We need to become our own emperor, decide upon, and I'm saying that not as a rebellion, but to empower ourselves with our visions, and then be a leader in our own families, in our own little worlds, whatever they are, not giving away our power. And trying to bring stability back in the world. And I think maybe during the end of 2020, I think all of us will have a better indication on what it is that we need in order to bring back stability in the world. We have to also bring our hearts, our mind into what we do. Again, it is a year of claiming your own authority. You can do this because the Fool card says, hey, I'm a newborn spirit now. I'm out with the old and in with the new. I see the light. I see things differently. I'm aware. I'm gonna let go of this, and I'm a light traveler now, and I'm starting all over again. So, okay, let's see what I can create. Now, there's also a need to be adaptable to the rules and conditions that society is going to change and apply. So there's an adaptation period that I think we will be seeing in the 4-year. Yeah, and of course this has to do with Mars, the energy of Mars, Aries. A lot is going on in that individual sign. I think right now Chiron is in Aries, so there's also a healing process. So now I would like to kind of end this by talking a little bit about the Fool card, the 22 number if you're going to look in numerology, and then the capacity to kind of release fear, almost like we're a new vehicle now, we're a new container, and like a newborn child, we have no fear until we're told by our parents or the authority figures, okay, now you need to fear this because this is going to hurt you. So there's a releasing of fear and expressing power by kind of forming a truce with the new reality that is confronting us. And of course, I'm talking about now a time frame that begins in 2021, where our feet are on the ground again and we're brushing ourselves off, and then there's this, the world is now more at one, or more in alignment, if you will. Certainly there's a lot more to do, but we're more in alignment with what has been changed, what no longer works, and then what we're hoping to build. So that's kind of important. Astrologically, as I alluded to earlier, the Fool is Uranus, and it corresponds very well with what is happening with the universe, with Uranus, and where it is. Currently, it is in Capricorn. It's going to be there for a while. Oh no, I'm sorry, Uranus is in Taurus. What am I saying? And the changes that Uranus is going to be bringing in Taurus, my feeling is that is going to be on a financial picture where there's going to be restructuring in the economy going forward. I think that's all I want to say about Uranus and the Fool and it being in Taurus. The empowering thing I want to say is that we are now reborn, and hopefully we can put away fear for the time being and have a sense of protection that the universe works with us, guides us, will help us. Understanding discernment, changing the way we judge, changing the way we trust, looking to find the answers within ourselves instead of relying on other people or other systems to work. The universe is, and I say the universe, source, God, spirit, is never looking for perfection. It is only looking for completion within us, to be complete, to be whole, to be united, to let go of the duality of what seems to separate us over and over again. So again, I think the last thing that I didn't cover as I wrap this up is I really wanted to talk about Saturn, because Saturn is known as the planet of the taskmaker. The old books talk about Saturn as Father Time, and because it is right now in Capricorn, it's feeling very much at home. And I think that the power of the 8 that is given to the number of this particular conjunction and the number that Saturn is, as well as the Strength card and the Justice card, it correlates with the empowerment of outside forces. Okay, now here's where I wanted to talk about this. Saturn has to do with scientific law, older persons, and when I thought about that, I thought older people, they are the ones most vulnerable to this pandemic. And here we had a Saturn conjunct Pluto in Capricorn. The number, basically, if you take January 21st, like I said earlier, 2020, when the World Health Organization talked about it, that just flips these numbers over. It is still a number 8 in its essence on that day that they opened up the door to this virus, to this COVID-19, that 8 really was an eye-opener, because it talks about tradition, it talks about older people, it talks about science and what we're doing to try to find a vaccine. It has to do with unrest. Saturn is the taskmaker, so it really brought home a lot of that energy that I wanted to bring to you, as well as the number 8 for what it represents. Okay? Number 8 symbolizes renewal, rebirth, regeneration, spiritual, and natural powers. Where is it? Well, we see it in 2 places. We see it in the Magician when we use it as the infinity sign, and in Back to Strength. over her head. And these cards really blend in so beautifully. And we know that the infinity is very empowering, and it is the combination of the duality of life. Some numerologists say that the top part of the 8 is really a circle on top of another circle, and the top one represents the spiritual world, and the bottom the material world, and we live in both of those. And when we unite them together, when we don't separate our head from our bodies, when our mind works with our heart, everything works in unison. It is also called an indestructible number because you can write it upside down or right side up or sideways, and it maintains its integrity, its power. So it is a very sacred number of really resurrection and lack of limitations if we take it. And use it. And of course, we have that energy in this year, 2020. We always have it, but we have it through the changes astrologically of what is happening. And I guess that's the positive note that I wanted to leave with you here today. The cyclical energy of life, the world, the universe. And this year, definitely it's a powerful one. It's a learning one, but hey, together we will get through it. We will learn from it. We will rejoice from it. The idea is for us to unite. Thanks, everyone. Let me know if you have any questions. I know this was long. Thanks for bearing with me. Take care. Bye-bye.